question is, why do they keep killing Suzie? Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Torchwood episode, They Keep Killing Suzie, written by Paul Tolomen and Dan McCullum, and is directed by James Stone. This is a direct sequel to the first ever episode, Everything Changes, as it deals with many elements from that story. It brings back the resurrection glove and the now established life knife, named by Yanto in the story itself. And it also deals with the death and the resurrection of Suzie. I mean, to keep spoilers away, this story was originally entitled They Keep Killing. Before, when the episode was then aired, they changed it to They Keep Killing Suzie. So that kind of spoils the twist that Suzie returns, making her the first Torchwood exclusive recurring villain, despite the fact that A, she's human, and B, in the first episode she died. Like, how did she come back? That's one of the greater mysteries of this Torchwood episode. Now, Suzie was actually built up during the promotional of Torchwood before the series aired as one of the regular characters. In fact, in the first episode, the actress who plays her name is actually one part of the top billing in the credits. So it made audience think, it's like, right, she's going to be a recurring character. We won't expect her to be the villain, and twist, she's the villain. So her kind of becoming a regular or a semi-regular was actually kind of established then in that story. And, you know, it also deals with the same emotional impacts, like what is life after death, and how resurrecting people is like this, like, curse that, like, keeps pushing you and stuff, in a sense. It also deals with a lot of character moments from Gwen and Jack, who both feel sort of guilty for the death of Suzie, despite her shooting herself in the head. And so, yeah, that's what I really want to talk about. This is the official season 1 box set, but this story is actually the first of its disc, so I printed out a DVD cover of my own. This one I actually put together myself. I did a really quick job. It looks really disturbing. Suzie's face is there. I really love that image of her. It's really scary. And the blood, I wish I cut it out a bit better. You can kind of, I like how it, like, how the Torchwood logo kind of pops out there at the side. But yeah. Here's the spine if anyone's interested. Very nice, very cool. Pretty cool, very nice. And here's the back. I miscorrected saying that the story was written by James Stone, but it's not. He directed the episode. And I've also put down, also includes Random Shoes, the other episode on this disc. I hate the fact that I have to do that, but like, what else was I supposed to do? So there you go. So that's the episode that we're going to be talking about in this vlog. I've done these so many times. I should find better transitions on doing this. But yeah, that's basically all we need to talk about the story. So shall we begin into the adventure? Right off the bat, we get a really corny little moment, which is one of those things that people just love taking the mick out of. And I will be honest, as soon like the first 3 seconds of this episode made me laugh my ass off. It's the bit where they come out with their car coming onto the crime scene, and you've got all these detectives, some of them in suits, some of them in these like protective things so they don't contaminate the environment. And then you've got the Torchwood team, all like leather, not leather, but all like in these like really fancy gets-ups, and they're all wearing sunglasses, despite nobody else wearing sunglasses. And we have that moment where, for a second, it goes into slow motion, as if to go, yeah, look how cool we are. But in reality, it just makes the show look really corny, and it's a bit silly. And I don't know if that was the production of it, or whether that was a choice by James Stone. Knowing James Stone's previous work, especially on Doctor Who, I would put my bet on it was one of the producers that told him to do like this slow motion silly moment. Especially how it doesn't really feel like... Actually, something to think about, I actually do like this, because you go into this thinking, right, we're getting a cheesy, typical torture plot. What are they going to walk into? A place full of boobies and aliens and sex and needless swearing. And we get into that mindset. It's like, okay, this is torture, this is silly, we're goofy and all that. And then we get into the crime scene, and it's this absolutely bloody mess full of, like, there's these two dead bodies, this couple, as there's just clear signs of violence, as there's blood splattered onto the side walls, on the bed, everywhere. It's just a horrible scene. But one thing that stands out is on the wall, painted in their blood, is the word Torchwood. Somebody has killed these people, and they've done it to get Torchwood's attention. And that leads into the credit scene. And that was such a great hook, because, like, at this point in time, we've learned, Torchwood deals with, like, so many alien creatures, so many, like, evil people, and to round it down to someone that they already know is going to be a difficult task. And so it also puts into our mind, it's like, who's coming back? I mean, clearly we have a name in the title, They Keep Killing Suzie, implies Susie's going to return. But how is she doing this? How is this all possible? They have a sample of something from the not from the victims, but they somehow got evidence from the murderer. I can't remember what it is, but they basically looked down to his bloodstream and found that he has a particular compound. That compound is retcon, the drug that Jack used during Everything Changes. I love how this story really only ties into Everything Changes, making it a complete direct sequel. It doesn't really tie into any other story in between. Like, we don't get a mention of Yanto's personal trip, but it's supposed to be a Gwen and Jack story in a sense. It's supposed to be their emotional grip, and so audience who only really caught the first episode can jump into this episode again, knowing that Suzie is going to return, and it's like, how is Suzie going to return? And just delve in from there. We quickly learn that this person has been using retcon. We also learn that that there are several victims died in the exact same way, and the only thing they have in common is that they were part of a group called Pilgrims, which we talked about, like life after death, and does God exist, and is there heaven, is there hell, and that kind of stuff. And Gwen points out the fact that they have a glove which can resurrect the dead and ask them. We can ask them who killed them, and who he was, who killed them. So they used the glove. The first time is a complete failure, as the guy they resurrect is just constantly screaming and shouting. It's like, how? Someone help me, please. Someone save me, please. Help me, save me, help me, help me. Dies. We get this whole thing that nobody else can use the glove except Gwen. Something is like sort of they're out of practice. Gwen somehow just has a natural talent for it. Apparently it builds on the energy of grief. I understand why Jack wouldn't be able to use it, because he is a temporal time phenomenon, something which we'll later learn in later episodes, and he's technically dead, but somehow thanks to something with Rose, he cannot die. So basically he's in a state of life and death in a sense. So I understand why the glove doesn't work on him. Especially later on when we learn that the glove actually steals the life energy from the user. But I don't understand why none of the other characters got it to work. I mean, they work in Torchwood. They're full of grief and anguish. So, but it just keeps the plot, the plot focused on the fact that it's Gwen. If Gwen is the only one to use it, it's a bit contrived, but it gets the plot forward. There should have been a better way to explain that, to get Gwen to be the one to use it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the more you use it, the less efficient it is. Like there's like a time limit on certain people, and Suzie just so happened to be the last one, and now Gwen being a new person. That's how I would explain it anyway. But anyway, Gwen uses the glove, resurrected one person, completely failure. They resurrect another person, and Jack calms him down so he can get some information about him. They find out that the murderer is part of this pilgrim, and his name is, I think his name was Dan. I can't remember, but he doesn't know his last name. But he used to always talk to this woman doing his pilgrim meetings. This woman named Suzie, and then collapses dead. And so they're like, it can't be Suzie, it can't be our Suzie, it must be another Suzie. That is massive coincidence. I love how the story kind of references the fact that it's a massive coincidence. But Jack is 50-50, so they actually go into the vault containing all of Suzie's personal belongings. And it's here where Gwen starts to question, not like question her loyalty to Torchwood, but it's kind of understanding a bit more of what Torchwood is, and that this is a secret organisation. Like, when Gwen dies, she's not getting a funeral. Her body's going to be stored in Torchwood Tower forever. And that all of her belongings will be taken by Torchwood and locked up away in this storage room. And Reese, if Reese lives after Gwen, will get nothing from Gwen, which is really disturbing. And Jack just is basically just like, this is protocol, and that's it. Gwen doesn't really get an answer. Like, okay, actually, yeah, she does get the answer. This is going to happen to her. But in terms of why, in terms of like, can she reverse it? Jack's like, no. Secure. Laws and security, those are the rules. And that's kind of messed up. Like, Torchwood has basically taken the lives of its workers. It's this really horrible company has taken away basically the lives of these people, and when they're dead, their families will get nothing from them. How messed up is that? And so they go into Suzie's locker, find out that she was part of this pilgrim, and Jack announces that they've been talking to the wrong corpse. And so they bring out Suzie's corpse, and Gwen uses the resurrecting glove on her. First, nothing happens, but then somebody points out that the life knife might have actually been a part of it. The life knife seemingly makes the resurrection glove last longer than a normal death, and so Jack is forced to actually stab Suzie's remains with the life knife as she gets resurrected, and they talk about this person that she knew during the pilgrim. What's his name? Who is he? And all that. And originally it seems like they get nothing out of her as Gwen suffers this shock and she collapses onto the floor, and Jack's like, you shouldn't have done that. That's our one last chance. That's our no. There you go. That was our last chance to find this killer who wants Torchwood, and we've lost it. We bummed it. But Yanto notices something, because he's been timing the deaths, the resurrections that Gwen has been doing. Susie's still alive. She is still connected to this reality. She has been fully resurrected. And that is messed up. Now, James Stone is a great director. I mean, he's proven this in The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit, and later on in Cyberwoman, even though in Cyberwoman there were some silly moments. So, like in this story, there's some silly moments, but there are some really stunning moments, especially when it comes to visual effects. There's a moment where the camera pans around and we see the hole in Susie's head from the gunshot that she had at the end of Everything Changes. And she's in this wheelchair and she's completely weak, and she slowly throughout the episode she gains more and more strength. And the story tackles them with uncomfortable questions, because like, this is somebody who used to work for them, betrayed their trust, and now has been brought back to life and gets to see all these people since, like, after her death. And it's disturbing how, from her point of view, she's just been replaced. Nobody warned her. Nobody, like her father, doesn't know that she's dead. And the torture team just basically just like, right, she's dead. Let's bring Gwen in here, and there you go. We've replaced her. Nobody really cared about Suzie, and this traumatizes Suzie. It's like, you completely replaced me. Nobody cares about me. All the torture team didn't seem to like me. I kept, as Owen stated, she kept to herself essentially. Presumably because, she was obsessing about the resurrection glove. The resurrection gauntlet, sorry. Not the resurrection glove. And so we get these really uncomfortable questions where Suzie is just like, she just feels like Gwen has replaced her, and she is such a better replacement that, it horrifies her, and the emotional impact is just really gets to her. And it's like, can I see my father? No. And I get completely forgotten? Yes. It's like, when you die, you think that everybody in work will mourn you, or at least like think about you in some sense. But no, not Torchwood. In Torchwood, when you're dead, you're completely forgotten, and that's it. The job just keeps on going. How messed up is that? And she basically, and I like how Gwen, she kind of feels really guilty towards Susie's death. She believes that she is a part of it. And she talks with Suzie, and slowly she does kind of come to the conclusion that it's Jack's fault. Like, Susie's father was dying of cancer, and Jack gave her the resurrection gauntlet. So, no one, from Gwen's point of view, it's like, no wonder she would become obsessed with this, to bring back the dead if her father is dying. And she goes up to Jack, she starts shouting at him, but Jack is like, you blamed yourself for her death. It's not your fault, it's not your fault, it's not my fault. It's both our faults that she died, and had this horrible event take forth. And that kind of puts things in perspective from Gwen's point of view, because she still does feel guilty, but now she kind of understands that Jack also is guilty, and he feels guilty, and it's up to them two. And there's a great discussion. It's like, what if she doesn't die? What if she continues to be immortal? Would you and her live out eternity together? And Jack's like, no, I'd rather kill her now. Eternity is a curse. I would not want anybody to suffer the way I have. Basically implying that Jack has lived for thousands and thousands of years. And so Gwen basically comes up with this plan, because she's the relatable character. She's the emotional baggage to try and break her out. But before that, they actually go into a nightclub, because they're tracking down some of the Pilgrims members before they get murdered. They realise that that Suzie, she retconned somebody in her small little group, this guy, and she's been using retcon to alter his memory to the point where he's basically become psychotic, and he's going around killing the other Pilgrim members and mentioning Torchwood because Suzie used him to basically get off her chest with all this Torchwood stuff. And so, because she's been feeding him retcon for so many years, he's basically become madly psychotic. And they capture him in a disco scene, which is one of those things. It's like all of these like edgy adult shows need a scene where people are at a disco and they're searching for someone, where there's like a rave music going on. That's just something that happens. It happens in Blade, it happens in Hellboy, it happens in Torchwood. Like, that's just like a cliche. Like, and it's really funny that Torchwood is doing the clubbing, but it's supposed to be like Cardiff, so it doesn't really bother me here. And so they capture him, and I notice something odd. His psychosis, his madness, shall we say, is very specific. Somebody mentions Torchwood, he just gets up and starts banging on the walls, and then, like after like 5 seconds, he just sits down calmly and just stares into nothingness. It's really messed up. It's really really disturbing, and they slowly start to put together. It's like, wait a minute, like if this is caused by retcon, that's a very oddly specific trigger, almost as if someone planned this. Whilst on the other end, Gwen actually breaks Suzie out to try and so that she can meet with her father after she's been basically guilt tripped. And whilst they break out, the base goes under lockdown. There's no way that Gwen would even allow Suzie to let the base go under lockdown, and so we get a sort of twist here, which retcons, retcons. That retcons everything changes in a way. From Suzie being the villain, because, you know, she started obsessing over death. She was, what's the word? When you have a phobia of death. She is that. And she just really doesn't want to die. And, you know, the life glove has been, the resurrection gauntlet has basically turned her crazy. It's basically retconned that in this story to her being essentially this evil, scheming, like she's had this massive plan to resurrect herself and to do all of this so that she can take the life and basically become an immortal herself. When she was alive, she altered the base's programming because, you know, she was good at computers. Oddly, there's a line in which Toshika said she was good at computers, she was good at everything. But then there's other scenes where it's like, especially from her point of view, it's like, I wasn't good at anything, you've replaced me, you didn't even like remember me when I died. And I feel like that Toshika line really misbalances that emotional grip, because it's like Suzie is terrible, Suzie's great at everything. Suzie was struggling to team up with the team, but Suzie was this amazing character. Like, it's only a small little dialogue, but it does kind of hinder the emotional grab. And she programmed the Tortured Base that it'll go into lockdown when a Pacific poem was being read out. A book which I have seen in Suzie's locker in her warehouse, in her thing. And so Jack has to basically call up the FBI, this woman that we meet earlier on in the episode, to read out basically the entire book to try and find a reverse mechanism so they can get out of the lockdown, as Gwen drives off and takes Suzie to her father. We also learn, thanks to Owen, viewing footage of Life Energy, that when Suzie was resurrected, the connection between her and Gwen is still there, and that she's basically feeding off Gwen. When Suzie is fully restored, Gwen is going to die. And that brings up to some really disturbing concepts. It also means that everything from this from previous points from Susie's perspective was kind of a lie to bring up Gwen's trust. When Gwen takes Suzie to her father, it turns out that she absolutely hated her father and just wanted to get to him so she can kill him before the cancer. It's like she pulls out his life support system as Gwen gets this massive pain in the back of her head and she starts bleeding from the back of her head. As Suzie describes, she's getting shot. She's getting shot in the head, but slowly before she starts dying. And so the tortured team escape after the FBI read out the barcode of the book, which, fun fact, isn't actually the real barcode. That code is for the 1996 edition of the Oxford Encyclopedia of Quotations. Don't ask me how I know that. I just do. Very odd, very specific. But anyway, so they track down Suzie to this docks, and Jack just shoots the hell out of Suzie because she's basically trying to guilt trip him. It's like, you won't kill me. When I take over Gwen's life, I will be the only thing that lives of Gwen. You won't kill the last remaining soul of Gwen. And Jack's like, won't I? And shoots her. But she gets up, she's still breathing, she's still alive, and she's laughing at Jack. She's like, you can't kill me now. I'm just like you, and Gwen lives through me, and you can't destroy me. Despite, Jack shooting her. It's just, because of the resurrection gauntlet and Gwen's life force still being around, she is still surviving. And Jack puts into his head that it's the gauntlet. And so, back at the base, Tashika and Yanto destroy the gauntlet, which to kill Suzie completely and resurrects Gwen, bringing Gwen back and restoring her. We get this really lovely moment of Jack coming back into the base, and he just looks at Gwen, and Gwen is just, you can see the pain, but the joyfulness of her basically getting a second chance of life here, and that the tortured team cared for her so much that that they did all this just for her, and you could kind of see that in their face, and Jack is looking at Gwen, and you can kind of feel that there is a sign of guilt there, but also he's glad that Gwen is resurrected. We also get a scene of Jack and Yanto talking, and this is the first time that we get hints of a sexual relationship between them two, something which would be a big part going forward into their characters, the relationship between Jack and Yanto. It's strange how this plot line gets potted up, because from Yanto's perspective, Jack was the one who killed his ex-girlfriend. Sure, time has passed, but still pretty odd, still pretty strange in terms of a narrative perspective. But I understand, this episode isn't really connected to Cyberwoman, so there's that, I suppose. They kill Suzie. Now Suzie, before I get into my conclusion, Suzie was actually supposed to be a recurring villain. Apparently she was due to return in Series 2. However, due to the actress being pregnant during the filming of Series 2, she was unwilling anyway, to be part of Series 2. And so, sadly, Suzie never returned. But it's nice that, Torchwood has its own recurring monsters. I mean, surely the Weevils, but at this moment in time, the Weevils haven't had actually an episode to themselves. They're just sort of like a background monster. But there you go. So that's They Keep Killing Suzie. Overall, it deals with a lot of great interesting moments, a lot of great character beats, and a lot of great stuff. But I don't feel like it's as strong as it should be. There's some really corny moments, like the bit at the start, and like Torchwood always has like these awkward edits which I find really distracting. There's also Suzie, when it's revealed that this was actually this whole scheme of hers, this whole plan. The emotional grabbage of the episode heavily relies on the Gwen aspect, as Suzie basically becomes a mustache-twirling villain. A pretty decent mustache-twirling villain, but not as memorable or as greatly connected to the audience as she was prior. And watching it back and realising that what she's saying is just this scheme to get Gwen to trust her. I mean, Gwen fell for it. It was used to manipulate Gwen, which that affects Gwen in a way, and that is a really good, part of the plot. But from Susie's point of view, it would have been nice to kept her character a little bit true to her original concept of this person who just is an absolute fear of death, and she's kind of beat down by the fact that she was easily replaced in the tortured community kind of thing. I don't know how I went to that. So overall, really good episode. Highly recommended, so go watch it. So join me next time when the Doctor and Martha go to the future and they team up with a small group of people to fight a resurrected sun. What? How can the Doctor and Martha take down a sun, especially when they're using pop quizzes? What? So join me next time for 42, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!